about 5 years ago, I recorded a video showing off the physical aspects and some other details of the Lenovo ThinkPad X1 Yoga Gen 6. Well, I haven't done one in 5 years, so I figured I'd do another one about what is now called the Lenovo ThinkPad X1 2-in-1. They changed the name from Yoga, Gen 11. So sitting in front of me is Gen 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, which I will talk about a little bit more, but we'll start with the unboxing of the Gen 11. So to full honesty, I've actually unboxed one of these before. I got 14 of them. I used them at work, but we'll open this one up together. So they got rid of the little handle off these, probably to save on plastic. Basically everything in this box is recyclable cardboard. Okay, so we open it up, and first we'll take out the accessories box. So in the accessories box, and this is the US version. In different parts of the world there's slight differences to it, but we'll set this aside for a second. But we have the US power cord, and then the newer, much smaller USB-C charging brick. This charging brick is, I don't know, 15% the size of the old ones. It's so tiny, it's unbelievable. But anyway, there we go. And then included in my model, I don't know if all models come with it, is the latest iteration of the Lenovo stylus. It has three little charging dots, and when we unbox the laptop, we'll talk about that a little bit more. Okay, so let's come back over here, pull off the little box, and pull out the actual laptop. So here we are. Thanks for choosing our products. Comes in its nice little fabric container. Pull it out. And there we are. There's the ThinkPad X1 2-in-1 Gen 11. And I'll talk about some of the stuff here in just a minute. We'll open it up and look at it. Comes something they started doing the last 2 years, I think, is this little kind of instruction sheet that tells you that you can attach the pen on the side or underneath. The power button is also now the fingerprint reader, and then you can plug in the USB-C. So now the model I got comes with I always forget which one's anti-glare and which one's anti-reflection. I think this is anti-glare because I can easily see my reflection in it. I actually prefer the other one, but the choices that come with, depending on which model of processor and other things you get, are slightly different. So the keyboard has been changed slightly. It has the Copilot button. They moved the power button back onto the keyboard. It was on the side for a while. So while I'm talking through here, we'll do a little bit of comparisons. So if we grab the Gen 4 and the Gen 5, now the Gen 4 and the Gen 5 are physically identical, and in some cases there was a second version of the Gen 4 that had the exact same processor as Gen 5. But anyway, so there they are next to each other. And I'll place the Gen 11 on top just to show it's, we'll put them this way vertically. So it's a little less wide because they now use a 16:10 screen instead of a 16:9 screen. It's just a tiny bit taller because of the camera bump, but it's very similar in size to the Gen 4. The Gen 4 is the first one, of course, that came in the iron black, or iron gray, excuse me. I had some Gen 1, 2, and 3s, but unfortunately my Gen 3 broke and my Gen 1 and 2s are showing their age pretty bad. But I figured going back 7 years was enough. So on the Gen 4s, the power button was on the side. And if we look at the keyboard, they put them side by side. They're very similar keyboards. On the Gen 4 and 5, the fingerprint reader was independent, kind of next to the touchpad, built into the palm rest. Everything else is very similar. We've lost the print screen key. It's kind of moved to the F1 key now, but you know, the general keyboard is the same. One thing on here that they no longer do is they don't recess the keys. There were some generations of the Yoga where they actually would pull the keys down and recess them. They don't do that anymore. But anyway, so there's the Gen 4 and Gen 5 comparison. So we'll set those off to the side. Now, the Gen 6, 7, and 8 are very similar but have a few differences. So if we put them all together, the Gen 7, 6, 7, and 8, they are identical measurements-wise. The one difference is the camera bump. It's kind of hard to see here, but I'll try to see if I turn it this way. You can see the camera bump is there, but that's really just changing the bevel on it. But and on these, they stopped putting the power button on the side and then put it inside again. But if we, oops, sorry for that squeaking. If we bring this up here, and this one's actually booting up on me. Let's see if I can get this one to stop booting. Nope, it's going to keep going. So we'll close that one for now. But the keyboard on the Gen 6, 7, and 8 are all the same. And if we compare it to here, again, the print screen got moved, and the power button is up here outside the keyboard on the top of the case. And the fingerprint reader was integrated into the power button in this generation, this generation 6, 7, and 8. I'll just open up move these around, got too many of them. So if we look at the Gen 6, and you can see the slight difference here in the camera. You got the camera bump on the 7 and 8 that wasn't there on the Gen 6, but it was very similar otherwise. And the fingerprint reader is all in the same place. So we'll set the Gen 6, Gen 7, and Gen 8 off to the side. Oof. And then we'll grab the Gen 9 and Gen 10. So Gen 9 and 10, they redesigned the case more significantly and added a much more pronounced camera bump here. The Gen 9 and 10 also moved the power button back to the side. Lenovo really can't decide whether they like the power button on the side or underneath or on the top of the case or the keyboard. If we open this up, they also did something different here, which is they put the fingerprint reader where the right-hand side control key is. It seems like they figured out that was not a great thing, so they stopped doing that again now with the Gen 11. But on the Gen 9 and 10, that's where the fingerprint reader was. Almost every version of the Gen 9 and 10 came with the IR camera. The IR camera was an option when you got maybe the 4K screen or some of the higher end options on the older models. But with the Gen 9 and 10, it started coming with all of them. This Gen 10 in particular has what they call the haptic touchpad. And you'll notice the difference is they don't have the buttons as physical buttons up at the top. They are drawn there, but they're not the same. This was actually a spare Gen 10 that I got. The majority of the Gen 10s I got have the physical touchpad buttons instead of the haptic touchpad. So we've done a little bit of talking about the older models. Let's talk about this new model a little bit more. So one of the big changes they made was moving the HDMI port over to the left-hand side. It was like that in the Gen 4 through 8, but then in the Gen 9 and 10, they moved it to the right-hand side. Then they also moved the headphone jack over to the left-hand side, which hasn't been there since the Gen 4 and 5. You have the two USB-C ports that are also Thunderbolt 4. And then if we go to the other side, we see there's only one USB-A port, but there's an additional USB-C port. I did test today to make sure you can charge from any of the three USB-C ports. They are all functionally identical. And there's one USB-A 3.2 Gen 2, I forget what it is, basically the best you can get for USB-A. I think it's fair that at this point they've okay, I'm back with a screwdriver. So the other thing that I noticed looking at this, I'll bring back one of the G9s here. So on the G9s, there was also only 4 screws, but if you go farther back to the G8 or 6, 7, 8, there were 5 screws, and if we go back to the G4, 5, I think there was only 5 screws as well. But let's look. Yeah, 5 screws as well. So they've reduced since the Gen 9, they've reduced it down to only 4 screws instead of 5. One thing I noticed in here versus the older models, let me put one side by side here, is on the older models all the way back to the Gen 4, the removable tray on the bottom is almost edge to edge on all the things. Now with the new Gen 11, it's kind of embedded inside there. It's no longer the entire thing. Also, the bottom here, I'd be interested to see whether this is aluminum. I think it's still aluminum, but you know they've made this tray much smaller. I think partially because of this charging thing for the stylus. But anyway, let's pop this open and see what we see. Not coming off easily, so there it goes. It has a couple clips on there. Okay. Just has a couple of clips around the edges. So it's not only held in by the screws, but also by a couple of clips. So there we are. There's the bottom off. Now this has an even higher wattage battery than before, not much. It has a 58 watt battery instead of a 57 or 51, depending on how old it is. The huge, for me, advancement is, well, and I know they did it on one side, but they didn't do it on the other. This is kind of annoying. So the USB on one side is a daughter board that is much easier to replace. Unfortunately, the primary pair of USB-C is not on a daughter board. It's part of the entire system board. So if you mess up these USB-C, you're going to have to replace the whole system board. That's the only component that really has failed on all my generations of X1s is the USB-C. If you go back through all my repair notes, all but like 1 or 2, excluding water damage, are because the USB-C ports failed. And the annoying thing, I mean, it's covered under warranty, but the annoying thing is you got to replace this entire system board just to replace those USB-C. I had heard they were doing a daughter board, but unfortunately they only did the daughter board for those. We have the Wi-Fi module up here. It is non-removable. We have the SSD here, which is actually removable, as it has been for a long time, which is great. And I'm not sure what's under this thing. It looks like it's just the serial number sticker that's on top of there. The battery has less screws holding it down. It looks like the case screws were also holding it down based upon the locations. And the battery's a little bit smaller, but more powerful, so they've got more energy density in there. The same dual power fans as has existed in many generations of them. This particular model has 32 gigs of RAM. Almost all the X1 Yoga 2-in-1 Gen 11s come with 32 gig of RAM. It's actually hard to configure with 16 gig of RAM. That was an unfortunate choice they made this year based upon RAM prices. But anyway, there's your 4 8 gig modules for 32 gigs of RAM, and you know, your cooling and everything like that. The nice thing is you can replace this battery if it goes bad. You can upgrade the storage if you want to. This is a half terabyte one. That was the default that came with this model. So there you go. So let's close it back up and we'll turn it back on. Well, we will turn it on, not back on. So we click it down in to all its little clips and then screw it back down. Okay, so there we go. Flip it over, and I'm gonna plug it in just in case it's low on power. So let me undo this. Go to my handy dandy under cabinet plugs, and we'll plug it in. And you see when I plug it in over there, the little orange light comes on. Hey, it's charging. So you can charge it via any one of the 3 USB-C ports. And let's power it up. It's still called an Aura Edition. I thought they were going to give up on that last year after some of the apps that were coming from Intel were discontinued, but they kept going with it. I'm going to boot this up with the standard Windows install. I will say that when I image these and give them to employees at my work, I put a totally vanilla Windows 11 image on it. I don't install really any of the Lenovo apps and things like that because they just aren't terribly useful for my users. But you know, when you get it from from Lenovo, it will come with a lot of their kind of utilities and things like that. Okay. And in a few minutes, you will see a brief cut as I cut out the Wi-Fi stuff, but otherwise I will just keep going. I'm not going to add a second keyboard. So there was a brief cut there to cut out the Wi-Fi stuff. We're going to go for checking for updates, and it thinks. Okay, so the first restart, I probably will have cut out or sped up some of the stuff in between there, but we'll wait for it to restart. Okay, now we got to go through all this licensing. I'm going to call this Demo Gen 11. Now, because I renamed it, we got to reboot again. Okay, because I have Windows Pro, it allows me to do the option where I don't have to log in. So I'm going to say set up for work for school, and then I'm going to click sign in options, and then I'm going to say domain join instead, and then I can just put in whatever I want as my username, hit next. I'm not going to put a password because I'm never going to use this instance, and then I can scroll down and hit accept. I'm going to skip that. Now it starts doing the checking for Windows updates. Like I said, I did this with one other machine earlier today, and I know this part takes like 30 minutes, maybe more. So we'll let this go. In the video, you'll probably see a cut where it goes from step 1 to like the very end of step 3 or something like that. So see you all in about 30 minutes. After over a half an hour and I don't know, 5 or 6 reboots, we finally get to the Windows desktop. As I said earlier, I don't install all these Lenovo apps. The Lenovo AI, definitely not. Smart Connect, nope. The only one I install is Commercial Vantage, so you can get mostly BIOS updates. Most of the driver updates come through Windows Update, but it's there. So yeah, I guess I'll bring up Task Manager just to show a couple more things. So this was a custom build that I did because I wanted the lowest end i5. For my users, the lowest end i5 is more than sufficient, and it just extends battery life. So this came with an Ultra 5 325. Which is the lowest processor that Lenovo offers on this model. It came with 32 gigs of DDR5. Again, as I said earlier, that's the default on this model with Lenovo. There are a handful of models that you can get with 16 and also some with 64, but 32 is the mainstream. It's unfortunate that this is the year they chose to do that. Because it just drives the price up. I mean, 32 gig is nice, but 16 gig would have been a whole lot of savings. Interesting, I just noticed it has 4 slots or 8 slots of 4 gigabit. So it's got 8 slots of RAM, which is crazy. And it has the BE211 Wi-Fi 7 that's connected there, and the NPU and the GPU. The Intel graphics. One thing I noticed earlier today, there's some new Lenovo AI thing. Like I said, I'm going to blast this away and not really do much with it after that. So I'm just going to exit. When you run the Commercial Vantage, at least, I'm doing this in mid-July. There's some pretty significant UEFI BIOS updates. So, if you happen to get one of these, I strongly recommend you running Commercial Vantage and getting the latest UEFI BIOS update because there's some pretty significant fixes, as there is often with brand new devices. I mean, this laptop, some have been for sale for maybe a month or 2. I ordered this in May and it just shipped in July. Let me just pop in here and I'll show you. And it gives you the tour of this in case you've never used it before. I've been using it for many years. So, okay. So I finally made it through the tour. And we can check for updates. And it thinks and it thinks and it thinks. If we scroll down here, there's a bunch of updates. They're all driver updates, which are, you know, not really necessary because I'm going to reinstall the operating system on here anyway. So I'm just going to unselect all of those. Bing, bing, bing. Because I'm going to have to redo them anyway the next time I install the OS. It seems like it won't let me unselect that. Or it's thinking really hard about something. There it goes. Okay. So I'm going to start this and it'll reboot a few more times. But the last thing I'll show you in another clip is the options on the Lenovo website. Hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. See ya. The final part of the video, I wanted to walk through some of the options that are available for this model. I'm starting on Lenovo's website. I'm looking at the US website. If you're in a different part of the world, you'll have different options. At this time, Lenovo is only offering one model of pre-built, which comes with the Ultra 7 365 and 32 gigs of RAM, like I mentioned before. And this one actually comes with 1 terabyte of storage. Its list price is $3,400. It's on sale for $3,000. These are just insane numbers to me. If we go back to see all the models, there's the model I just showed, and then there's a custom build. The custom build, in theory, starts at 2,400. So let's go in there real quick. The one thing I'll mention here is this does have the option of 256 gigs of storage, but still only a minimum of 32 gig. Also, the minimum processor is the 335. I went with a 325 because it skips Intel management stuff that I don't use and saves a little bit more money. If we scroll down to the tech specs, way down here, you'll see they don't even list the 325 as an option. And they also, you can get it with 64 gigs of RAM up to 9600 mega transfers, which is just crazy. So if we go in and click the build your PC, we'll go in here real quick and you can see you can step up to higher processors, nothing lower. And if we scroll down, the only option on this CPU is 32 gigs. If you go up to the 765, I think, it then gives you the choice of 64 or 256. They will give you the 256 gigabyte storage. Interestingly, here they're not offering the Gen 5 storage. I'll talk about in a second. You can actually see the Gen 5 storage. You have a couple of choices of the 1920 by 1200 screen, or they now, instead of having a 4K screen, they have a 2880 by 1800. I would recommend against it because it just drains your battery more. I mean, if you really want an OLED screen, great, but just understand it's going to kill your battery. And like I mentioned in the video, previously there's a haptic trackpad versus a regular trackpad, which basically removes the physical buttons. That's really the only options you have here when doing a customization. But I mean, you can at least start at 2,400 instead of at 3,000. The other thing that's available is the overview from PSRef, and we talked about this. My model didn't have the Nano Slim slot. That's only available on certain models, and I don't even think there's any US models that have it. But you can see on here, they do actually mention the 325. The other thing they show here, which isn't available in the configurator, are the H style processors. Those are like, double the amount of cores as what's in the non-H processors, and also can go up to higher speed memory. And if we keep scrolling down, So you can get 3 different speeds of memory, but you really don't get to choose. It's just what comes with that particular CPU. And it says there's a 24 gig option, but I haven't seen that anywhere. So maybe. And then you can get the PCI 5.0. I can't imagine how much that costs. It must be just outrageously expensive, considering the PCI 4 are already super expensive. So let's hop over to PSRef, where it shows all the models. So if you look up in here in the top right, there's almost 3,500 different models around the world. A lot of the models are duplicated. They're just available in different countries. But one thing that I noticed is if you narrow the search options to just the lowest end processor, there's only 253, so about 7% of them are that. And the same, or excuse me, let me take that back. If you narrow it down to 16 gig, that's what I meant to say. If you say you only want 16 gigs of RAM, you notice there is no 24 gig option here. If you want 16 gigs RAM, that's only about 253 or 7% of the options. So they're really not a lot of options for 16 gig. For 64 gig, there's almost 800 options. So, closer to like 20%. And then the rest, and the rest of the 70% are all 32 gig. The higher speed non-7467 memory is only available with the H processors. So, that's really not a big deal. And the thing that drove me nuts is the fact that there's only 5 models available in America. There's like another country's hundreds of models, but only 5, and that's why I had to do a custom build. And then the last thing I'll mention here is the storage. You can see there's a 2 terabyte and a 1 terabyte and a 512 of the high performance. When you do that, it again limits your choices for other things. And then the other thing, you have the 4 different monitors, depending on whether you want an OLED or not. And I think that's about it. So yeah, it's really interesting just to look at this and see what's available in different countries. I mean, you can scroll down to the bottom and just pick the country you're in, and you can see what models are available in your country. And so if I filter it down, there's a total of 5 available in America. And it only comes with 2 processor options, only the Ultra 7 options. They're not offering any other models. They only offer 32 gigs, and they only offer the PCIe 4. So for some reason in America, we have to get the better processors, but worse storage. I don't know why. But anyway. If you made it this far in the video, thanks for watching along. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments below on YouTube. And thanks. Bye.